Hi, good morning. Thanks for joining us today. I'm Bethany Perry, the coordinator with NOAA Central Region Collaboration Team. I'm your host for today's webinar, and we're really pleased that you're here. Today's website Walkabout with HPRCC and NIDIS has been organized by the NOAA Central Region Collaboration Team as a way to remain connected with regional climate partners in our virtual space. The webinar format is designed to help you better understand and navigate two new websites and the vast amount of resources, information, and tools that each provides. In addition to being NOAA Central Region Collaboration Team members, Molly and Natalie represent organizations that are critical in the delivery of climate services throughout our region. Today, you'll first hear from Dr. Natalie Umphlett, the regional climatologist at the High Plains Regional Climate Center, referred to as HPRCC. In her role, Natalie serves as the Climate Services Manager and Public Liaison for the Center and works closely with stakeholders and partners on climate monitoring for enhanced decision-making. Followed by Natalie, you'll hear Molly Woloszyn from the National Integrated Drought Information System, also known as NIDIS. Molly is a regional drought information coordinator and the program point of contact for the Midwest Drought Early Warning System, often referred to as DEWS. In Molly's role, she works to strengthen integrated systems for drought monitoring, forecasting, planning, and preparedness in partnership with federal, state, municipal, and tribal agencies, academic institutions, and other organizations. Throughout today's webinar, we'll break for questions as we go. So please submit the questions in the questions pane of the GoToWebinar panel. If you'd like, you can also include your name if so inclined, so we know who we're talking with. That would be great, but not required. And we're recording today's webinar, so it'll be available for viewing within the next week, and that will be located on our refreshed website, which is www.noaa.gov/centralregion. Our site also includes a new page that's been designed to provide quick access to popular drought and climate resources and information, as well as direct connects to our partner organizations. So finally, we'd love to get your ideas and feedback on this event as we strive to find methods that are ideal for strengthening our partnerships and increasing knowledge. So please take a moment at the end. There's a very brief survey with just a couple questions, and we'd really appreciate your feedback. So with that, thanks again for being here. I'm going to turn it over to Natalie and we'll get started.
All right, thanks everybody. I'm going to turn my camera off here. You know, it's always strange when it's been almost a year, but still not used to working from home. Sometimes I don't really know where to look when I'm doing presentations. So here we go. Let's get started. So as Bethany said, my name is Natalie Umphlett, and I'm the regional climatologist at the High Plains Regional Climate Center. And I am really excited to show off some of the new features on our website today. Yeah, since there are several new folks who are on the webinar today, which I have to say is very exciting. I see some familiar names on there, but also see some new ones. I thought I'd get started with just a little bit of background. And so hopefully this isn't all old news and maybe you'll learn something new. So the Regional Climate Center program has been around for over 30 years. And so the High Plains right here, along with our sister centers, we collectively serve the entire country. And you can see the states we routinely serve here in purple. And we also work throughout the Missouri Basin. So in addition to our 6 states, we also do some work in Montana, Missouri, Iowa, and a small part of Minnesota. And so locally, we all have slightly different approaches for serving our regions. So for instance, much of the work we do here at the HPRCC has a focus on agriculture and water resources, while places like the Southeast, they have more of a human health component to the work that they do. But no matter the focus, climate data really is at the heart of everything we do as a program. Our program is primarily funded from NOAA NCEI down in Asheville, but since we're all housed at universities, we have the flexibility to apply for other opportunities, and that really helps us as a program because we can expand our capabilities within all our regions. And so at our center, everything we do is driven by our mission. You can see that here, and that's to increase the use and availability of climate data and information. And we accomplish that mission by providing climate services, developing climate data and information products, engaging our partners and stakeholders, and meeting regional needs by supporting and participating in applied research. So everything we're going to talk about today is very much mission driven. And of course, a longstanding partner of the Regional Climate Center program is the National Weather Service, so all of you. And you might be surprised to learn that we support a lot of the climate products and tools that you use, maybe even on a daily basis. So for instance, the Southern Regional Climate Center down in Baton Rouge, they run the air reporting tool called Datzilla. The Western Regional Climate Center out of Reno, they run Weather Coder, which I'm sure you all know is the program that co-op observers use to input their data every day. And then the Northeast Regional Climate Center out in Ithaca, they run the ThreadX program. You can see the little logo there. And so that program helps stitch together station data so we can acquire these long periods of record so we can better depict daily extremes in temperature and precipitation. And so some of you on the webinar might have been involved in the station selection for those latest rounds of threaded stations. And I believe there's over 150 new threads that were created in just the past 4 years. So love to see those. Thanks for your participation if you're involved in that. The regional climate centers also run the Applied Climate Information System. And that's really the backbone of a number of climate products and tools that are out there, not just the ones that we have at our center, but or throughout the program, but people in like state climatologists, private industry. A lot of people use ACIS as that backbone to those tools. The two you might be most familiar with are NOW data, shown here on the left, and XM ACIS with little sample data shown here on the right. And of course, NOW data, as you all know, is available on each of your Weather Service pages. But if you're looking for a listing of all the NOW data pages, you can actually get that from the Southeastern Regional Climate Center. They have a nice link there, so you can direct people to that if that's something that you're interested in. And just to round this out, another way that some of the climate centers have been engaged with the Weather Service is through regional climate services workshops. So this has been a really big deal for our region, and then also for the Midwest region. So the Midwestern Regional Climate Center also involved in this. And so we work together to bring climate focal points, or really anyone working in the climate realm from the WFOs, together with different climate service partners. And we try to provide opportunities to practice skills and build relationships with these groups. And I'm really happy to say that since 2015, 39 WFOs and 3 RFCs have participated in these workshops, which is awesome. And we hope to get another one planned again as soon as we can all meet in person. And I know that some of you on today's webinar have participated in these workshops. So special hi to all of you. So that was just a really brief intro to get us started. So I'm going to pause here just for a minute to see if there are any questions. So I'll ask Bethany if she has anything.
First, let me say that we've had 3 RFCs participate. I'm sure all the folks from RFCs on the line would love it. There's 30 out there to help. Luckily,
I'm sorry. I meant to say 3. As a,
I know, no
worries. 39 WFOs and 3 RFCs participated. Yep.
And we're looking forward to more. So we've got one question so far, and that is about the workshops. And this person would like to know who will be included in the next workshop.
Oh yeah, here, let me go back a slide. And so you can see that from 2015 to 2018, all of these in this lighter blue have participated. And then in 2019, we ran a workshop down in Kansas. And so what we were hoping to do last year, but we'll have to pick it up again a different year, is to serve the WFOs that are down here in this region. So serving Kentucky and then up into Missouri. So this is the region that we hope to focus on next. So thanks for that question. Anything else?
No, let me throw in just a shout out to the Great Lakes Regional Collaboration Team, though. To get all of those offices included was a joint effort between both of the teams. So yeah, it's a great workshop, and we really look forward to being able to start those up again as soon as it's safe.
Awesome.
Yeah, all the questions for now, Natalie. Back to you.
All right, thanks. Well, With that, how about we move on to the website Walkabout? And so if you want to follow along, maybe you have two screens, you can simply go to our website, so hprcc.unl.edu. And as we do this, I'm going to share a different tab real quick here so that we can get going. All right, so you all should be seeing the homepage of the center, and looks like that should be working right now. So yeah, so this is our new homepage, and so it's a little bit different from before, but really the nice thing is that even though we have a freshened look and design, all of our usual products and services, along with the new features I'm going to show today, so all the old stuff is there. We hope you like this new photo. It's lovely. And so just real quick, for instance, if you are used to seeing our ACES maps page, a lot of people I know go directly to that, but you can get there from our homepage as well. Just very quick, you can click on Explore Maps. That takes you right to that page there. Or if you want to see a listing of all of our products and tools, under the Climate Data tab, you can click on Online Data Services, and that will actually take you to this tab or this page that has a listing of everything that we have on the site. So that makes it really easy. If you're looking for something, you shouldn't have to dig around too much there. And then also, I do want to say real quick, for those who are new, if you have a question and need to contact us, you can always contact me directly, or you can send in a general question to our Contact Us page, and that will get to our staff. So you can, if you just send a general thing in, it's not just me, it's several staff that get that. So you should get an answer back really quickly. So just wanted to point that out if you weren't aware of that Contact Us page. So either way, we'll get back to you if you have any questions. Yeah, so how about let's get into some of the fun stuff here. So first, what I'm going to do is tell you about the Station tool and the Station Data Explorer. And so Station tool can be accessed from this Climate Data tab. We go down to Station tool, and this is really similar to what we had up on our old site, but it does have a lot of extra bells and whistles. And to me, the best part of this new tool is the improved station graphics, and that's what we're going to focus on today. So this is pretty straightforward. You just put a station or a location into the search box. I'm going to put Lincoln. I know that's boring, that's where we're at, but there's a reason I'm putting it in. We've had some really interesting weather lately. And so you can also, I should go back to the search. You can customize this search if you want. So I just use the default settings, but if you wanted to expand this distance out, if you wanted to set your beginning end dates or choose a network or variable, you can do that. And you can actually save that search to history. And so that when you come back, you can just click on that. But for now, I'm just doing it really fast, really simple. And yeah, so we put Lincoln in, we see the stations that are in the area. And what I'm going to do here is just click on it, and you'll see that what happens is a little pop-up box shows up. We've got all sorts of metadata here, station IDs, our period of record, all these things. And then that's followed by several options. And some of these may look familiar because we did have some of these on our old website, but we do have a couple of new options, and that's these down here at the bottom. So I'm going to do the annual overview graphs first, and while that's churning, I should say this is powered by ACES. So if you are looking at this site, looking at the metadata, looking at the data, that would match anything you see on XM ACES Now Data, et cetera, et cetera. And so for this annual overview graphs feature, what you're going to get is this one graphic that helps put your temperature and your precipitation data into context. So when you go to the tool, it's going to pull the last 365 days of temperature and precipitation data. and it's going to plot that along with the normals. So you get that nice comparison over that time period. So you can see here, we've been very cold lately. Not surprising, the whole region has been very cold the past few days. But you can see that, and you can see how those line up between these two. So you can track those together. And what we've found is that for me, I like to use these especially for the monthly summaries, because I can quickly take a look and graphically see, you know, what time periods were warm, what time periods were cold, what time periods were wet or dry. I don't have to necessarily go to each month individually to do that. And so if you want to use these, you can easily export this to a PNG or PDF. So if you wanted to post this on social media, or if you wanted to use it in a report or something, please feel free to do that. We would love to see that being used, or if you have any feedback, let us know. So that's a fun new thing that we have. I'm gonna go back, and that's gonna pull up our stations again, or it should. We'll just search back again. And so while that's churning, the next part is that I'm going to show you is this Explore Data section. And so that's going to give us a tool that's going to give us 17 different graphing capabilities, which I think is really exciting. There we go. So we'll click back on that, and that's going to be this Explore Data option down here. You can also get to this section from our online data services part, so you don't necessarily have to go through the station tool if you don't want to. So I'm going to click on that here, and that's going to load. There we go. And so I can show you here real quickly. So we do have, like I said, 17 different options available for you to make graphics out of. And this is really easy to use. So really all you have to do is put in a station ID. Here it's already populated it because I came from the station tool and I had already searched for Lincoln and picked my station. But you can put in any ID that you want there, and then you select your variable, and we'll be on our way. So I think what I'm going to do first is show you my favorite one, and you'll see why I selected Lincoln here. So my favorite graph on here is snow accumulation, and we're going to pick our date range here. We're going to go back to, let's go back to the start of the season, the snow season being, of course, July 1st through June 30th. And we're going to go through yesterday. And so we're going to get our snow accumulation here. And great, that came up very quickly. And so what this does is, of course, we have our snowfall accumulation for that time period. We can see our normal snowfall in green, that green line there. We've got our individual snowfall days in that black bar, and then our accumulation over time. And so any time that our snowfall is below normal, we have this tan color, which here in Lincoln, we have not had much this year. You can kind of see it right there. And then any snowfall accumulation above our 30-year normal is in that purple color, and you can see that we are very, very above normal there. So I can show you real quickly. It's interactive, just like all of these. And so you can get the individual days worth of data if you'd like. So here on January 25th, we had our snowiest January day on record at 14.5 inches. That really boosted our accumulation for the season. And then we can scroll over and we can see as of yesterday, we are nearly 27 inches above normal on our snowfall. So that's a lot for this part of the country. We don't get a whole lot of snowfall really compared to other places. So it's a really interesting way to show that and to share that with others. So of course, if you like this interactive component, you can use the tool as is, but if you wanted to share this on social media, put it in a presentation, report, just click on the little hamburger symbol up here, and that's going to pull your drop down, and you can download that in different ways. And then one thing that I wanted to point out, I'm going to show an example for this particular tool, but it works for any of these graphs that you see. I want to point your attention to this link to this graph part. If I click it, it's going to bring up just that graph, and you can see up here in the URL it's got its very own URL. So if you wanted to bookmark a particular station or maybe a few stations, you wanted to track them, you could do that, and then you don't actually have to go to the tool and put all those options in every time. So it's a real time saver. I think this is a great feature. And one thing that I'm going to show you real quick here is if you notice in the URL, it's got your start date and your end date. Well, all you have to do here is put an end date of POR, so your period of record. Press enter. Of course, that's going to pull up through yesterday, but that's going to make sure that that accumulation graph has the most current date available. So tomorrow would show through today's, and the next day would show through the previous days, and so on. And so this is a really great way. Like I said, if you have a few stations that you want to track individually, you can do this, and you can do that with any of those graphs that were in that box. So, all right. We'll go back here. There we go. And then, so the last one I'm going to show on here, unfortunately, we don't have time to go through all of them, but I do want to show you this annual climate graph feature. We all know climate graphs, just an easy way to, usually what we do is we just depict our temperature and precipitation normals. But in this one, and I'll show last year as an example, in this particular example, what we're going to do is not only do we show our normals, so you can see our normal max, min, average temperature, and precipitation, but we're actually going to plot the observed data right alongside it. So in just a matter of a few clicks, you can very quickly tell if a particular location was above or below normal for several months at a time. And I know for me especially, I find this really helpful, especially if I need to go back and maybe a particular season was near normal, but I want to see what the individual months were like. I don't have to pull all that data. I can just look at this and see very quickly. So for instance, I can see that starting in the late summer and fall, we had below normal precipitation. You can see that pretty easily there. So you can do this for current data as well. You just put in the current year. Of course, if you have a partial month, it might, it's going to show the monthly normal. So that would just be kind of like what data you have compared to the monthly normal. So that may or may not be useful depending on your application. Just wanted to make sure everybody's aware of that. But I think when we look back at full months and over season and a year, this can be really helpful for putting some of that data into context. So I hope that you think this is interesting. I can't say that I've seen climate graphs displayed this way anywhere else. And again, this is also interactive like all these other graphs. So you can actually see the data if you want to do that. And you can always download these with the little hamburger button. So I think what I'm going to do now is before moving on, I'm going to stop for questions. And obviously, like I said, there's a lot of other features. So if you want me to do a run through of some of the others, I would be happy to do that one-on-one. Just let me know. So I'm going to pause here and see if there are any questions.
Thanks, Natalie. And yeah, there are a couple.
Okay.
So kind of a two-parter. Is there a way to include observation time in XMACIS2 in a table once a multi-station query is done?
Ooh, that is a good question. I'll have to think about that and get back to you. Bethany, would you be able to send that question to me in an email?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be able to.
Great, thank you.
So Tim and Quad Cities, we will get back to you.
Yes.
And yeah, so this was the follow-up to that, so it might need to be part of that. Yes, or for that matter, is there a tool on any regional climate center that shows observation time? So
yes, it will. I believe that within XMACIS, if you look at the station metadata, I believe it will show the current observation time. When I will say when I'm looking for observation times, I will go to NCEI's Homer tool, HOMR, And that shows you really detailed metadata throughout the whole period of record for a station. So that's kind of my first choice when I really need detailed metadata. But yeah, let me think about that one a little bit further too. And then I'd be happy to get back with you.
Cool beans. Let's see, the next one. When my screen is large, the legend at the bottom gets spread out, i.e. the precipitation and the normal precipitation are not stacked vertically.
Oh, okay. So we're talking about these right here. Yeah, okay. Well, I want to see, let me see what happens, because I know when I click this, it gets really big. Ah, the same thing happened to me as well. You know, I'm not sure why that's happening, but what I can do is make a note of that, and I can let our programmer know that it's stretching that out a bit and see if he can't mess around with the legend a little bit so it's stacked, because it's definitely better when it's stacked up nicely. So yeah, I'll see if we can get that fixed.
And thanks to our friend Ted Jamba for that. Let's see, another question. What kind of station IDs will work with the tool? Does the person need to use the station tool to get to this every time?
Yeah, so like we said up here, the station ID, you can put in any identifier that you want and it should work because this is tied to ACES. So if you want to put in, you know, a co-op ID, you want to put an airport ID in, any of those, you can see LNK worked fine for this. If you know that ID right offhand, like I know a lot of you probably do, you can put that in directly. Or what you can do is this will actually just take you back to the station tool, and then you can search for a station and then access it through that link like we had shown before. And then, yeah, if you don't want to go through the station tool and you want to get to this page, our online data services, if we go to that page and scroll down to Station Data Explorer, you can get directly to that tool right there. So lots of different ways to get to it, which is nice.
Great. And then I had one question from someone who missed where the recording is going to be posted. So I just put that in the chat box for you guys. And if you've received the invitation to this webinar, I will follow up with everyone with that link as soon as the recording is posted. And with that, Natalie, the questions are done. So back to you.
All right, thanks. Thanks for those questions. And like I said, yeah, I'll definitely be getting back to you on those other couple of questions about metadata. Yeah, so the next tool I want to show you is called the Gauges tool. And we're going to access that just like some of our other things through this Online Data Services tab. And so we're going to scroll down and we're going to just click right here, Climate Summary Gauges. And so this tool was actually developed by the Northeast Regional Climate Center, and they were nice enough to share the code with us so that we could put it on our website too. I think it's really neat. Right now, this tool works with the threaded stations. We do have a few extra stations put in here, but mostly threaded. You can access that here, so you can see the stations that we have in there. We've got the whole, all the states in the Missouri Basin. And so for this example, I'm going to go with Aberdeen, South Dakota. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this date real quick. Oh, it's popping up down there. I'm going to change it to just the end of January so we have a full month of data to look at. And so what this tool is going to do is it's going to show you very quickly how your month, season, and year are trending so far. And so it's not just with the numbers like we see here, we got the numbers, but it's also with these fun little gauges that are all color coded. And so you can see these gauges are broken up into percentiles. And we also have the max and the min values there. And so just using the temperature as an example, so we can see that our January temperature was 25.1 degrees. That ranked above the 75th percentile. And we know from the rankings, I looked this up, it was Aberdeen's 4th warmest January on record. So you can see that fell up there. It was not the new record, but it was very much above. And so if you click on that, you can see how that ranks really quickly there. And you can see all the different years that are in the record. Aberdeen has a very long record, you know, with their threaded station here. And so you can see that. You can also download that data with a CSV file there if you want to grab all of that. And so you can actually see all the values going back in time if you want to do that. And so going back to the tool, you can see that we have winter. So in this case, our end date was January 31st. So winter so far would have been December and January. And then this year would just be January 1st through the 31st. And of course, up until that point, things have been very warm. And so this makes a lot of sense there. And we can do the same sort of thing with precipitation. So it shows our January, winter, and so far this year precipitation. Again, you can click on that. You can grab the data. You can see how that ranked with the different years. And then what's kind of cool is at the bottom, we also have a few extremes that we can look at. And so for instance, this gauge on the right, you can look at the number of days with snowfall at 2, 4, and then 6 inches. And then you can also look at some of the temperature thresholds. So number of days where the high temperature is less than 32, number of nights less than 20, and we have a few different temperature thresholds there. So kind of a fun little tool, might be good for different reports or social media. It's just a different way to kind of display the data and think about the data. Yeah, so that was just a very quick overview of that tool. So I'll just pause for questions real quick.
Yeah, so the great thing about this is not just questions, but a few eagle eyes pointing out things to help out. So
Sure.
there is apparently an error in one of the gauges, and I don't want to butcher how you spell Havre, or how you pronounce Montana. It's located just above Glasgow on the map, and it should be about 160 miles west. So I'll capture that as well for follow-up.
Good catch. No, we'll get that map updated, no problem.
Our eagle eyes in Montana. And let's see, another question. Are the seasonal extremes customizable? This person would love to see nights below 0 instead of 10 or 15.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so that is this section down here, seasonal extremes. And you know, that is a great question for our programmer, because I agree. I think it would be great to know, especially right now, we've got this huge cold snap, this big cold air mass across the region. And so it might be great to quickly be able to tell, you know, in this tool, you know, how that ranks with other years. So yeah, let me see what I can do about that and see if we can't get a few more temperature thresholds popped on here. Yeah, thanks for that.
Sure. Let me pause for a second. Yeah, I think those are the questions for now.
All right. Okay. Well, now what I'm going to do is switch gears just a little bit, and we're moving away from tools and into some dashboards. And this is more for information. I think you might find it pretty interesting, and these might be good resources in case you get questions and need some places to point people to. So our first one is called our extremes page. You can access that from our climate monitoring tab right here. And what's interesting about this is that this page actually came out of some suggestions that we got during the 2019 flooding. So we heard from a lot of people saying that it would be great to have some place to go to get some of the aggregated information when it came to the floods. And so the easiest thing to do was we put a dashboard together with a lot of different resources and tools and contacts in case people needed to get in touch with somebody. And we decided that instead of just doing flooding, we would also do drought, because those are the two big climate extremes that we deal with often here in the region. And so, you know, like any good dashboard, we have links to all sorts of resources. So, you know, here I'm on the drought part. So we've got links to different briefings, webinars, the drought monitor. We've got change maps so people can see how drought's changing. Of course, we have links to the Weather Service and We've got fire forecasts and climate prediction center, and then some of the tools that we have that are applicable to drought, just popping on here for easy viewing. And then we also have links to local resources and to people for more information. And we also have that on the flood side, so some of the same tools and some new ones as well. So we have links, of course, to all the different RFCs that serve our region. Got things like the Storm Prediction Center, in case folks are worried about maybe some severe storms dumping some heavy rainfall, things like that. And so it's really just kind of a one-stop shop. You can see here when we came out with our report from last year about the excessive wetness of 2019, we popped that on here. This is one of those things where we could put more resources on here. We could certainly highlight different things that are going on. It's kind of up to you. This is meant to be not necessarily static, I guess static in the downtime between big events, but you know, as events are unfolding, we'd be happy to put different resources on here. So that'd be something, you know, just reach out to me if you feel like that's something that you'd like to do. We'd be happy to do that for you. Yeah, so those are just two kind of quick and simple pages, just in case people who aren't familiar with all those different resources, at least they can come to a place and kind of start to familiarize themselves with that. And then the second one that I'm going to show is this tribal decision dashboard. I'm really excited to show this off because this is one of our newest things on our website. It came out just last fall. And this was developed as part of a BIA-funded project that was led by the Sac and Fox Nation of Missouri and Kansas and Nebraska. And this includes, it included all the tribes in EPA Region 7. And this, of course, like any good dashboard, is meant to be a one-stop shop for weather and climate monitoring. And so I'll just give you a quick run through here so you can kind of just see how it works. It's a little bit different format from the other one I just showed. We worked directly with the tribes to understand, you know, what sort of resources they needed and what sort of format they would like it. So instead of one long page, we've got these different tabs at the top. You can see here, and when you click on them, the resources on the left-hand side will update with different things. So for instance, if we go here to forecasts and outlooks, the Weather Service is front and center, but then we also have all sorts of other things like long range river flooding from, like right here, we've got the Missouri Basin region, we got the Climate Prediction Center, outlooks, things like that. So we've got a lot of different resources available, and we try to keep these linked directly back to the products. So for instance, here we've got all our Kansas maps. These are the current maps that you would see on our ACES map site. If you go to the US Drought Monitor, that's the current US Drought Monitor. If you go to precipitation, those are linked back. So any of these resources, we try to have them current. And then this is just a really nice way to get a lot of resources together. And then of course, if folks want to learn more, they can always click on any of these. It'll take them directly to the page and they can dig into it a little bit further. And then I just wanted to show, so since this was limited to EPA Region 7 tribes, right now we have 3 main areas. The cool thing is when you click on one, all the resources within the dashboard update to that region. So you probably just saw all those Kansas maps. They now have Nebraska. So all the resources within that then update instantaneously. And so I wanted to show this off. I know that this might not be helpful for everyone. We are talking to a very large region today, but we do hope that with some additional funding, we can work with some more tribes to get this updated for more places in the region. So please stay tuned for that because it could be really exciting. And, and if this is something that you think that folks in your region could use, this is a resource that is here and available. So with that, I'm going to end my portion of the walkabout. I hope that some of these new features have piqued your interest. And so if you have questions, want to learn more, please don't hesitate to reach out. And thanks, everybody. I'll turn it over to Bethany if there's any questions.
Yeah, one quick question. If there's a local resource folks want to add to the extremes page, how do they go about doing that?
Sure. Yeah. So if you want to add something here, maybe you have a webinar coming up, or maybe you've put out a little report, something like that. Feel free to just reach out directly to me, and then I can work with our programmer, and we can get this page beefed up with some more resources. So that would be awesome. Thank you.
Sure. And if you don't mind, would you throw your email address into the chat box, and that way folks can note that?
I certainly can.
Awesome. And if other questions come to mind for Natalie, again, don't hesitate to throw those in the question pane. We'll have a few minutes at the end of the webinar to circle back with Natalie. And now we're going to transition to Molly. So she'll take over the presenter role and show us around the new Drought portal, which is, I don't know about you guys, but is super exciting, and I'm so glad to see it's out. So Molly, go ahead.
Great, thank you. Let's see here, just share my screen. Oh, okay. All right, it looks like everyone can see that. I'm really excited to be here today to talk with you a little bit about NIDIS in general to start, and then I will demo our new website. Okay, so the National Integrated Drought Information System, or NIDIS, we host the government's drought portal. US Drought.gov is the website if you're interested in following along. But before we jump into that, I just wanted to briefly take you through a few slides where I can tell you a little bit more about NIDIS. And then after that, we will get into the website. So what is NIDIS? NIDIS was first authorized by Congress in 2006 and again reauthorized in 2014 and 2018. And we were given an interagency mandate to develop and provide a national drought early warning information system. Essentially, our goal is that we want to help the country move from a reactive state to a more proactive approach when it comes to managing drought risks and impacts. So NIDIS, in our work in developing this drought early warning system, as I mentioned, we are given an interagency mandate, meaning that we work across federal, state, tribal, and local partners, as well as the private sector, academic institutions, and citizen scientists. So what exactly is a drought early warning system? To understand what it is, I wanted to briefly just look at what is the definition of drought early warning. So drought early warning is the provision of timely and effective information that allows individuals that are exposed to a hazard to take action to avoid or reduce their risk and prepare for an effective response. So when we look at this in the context of drought, what are those pieces of information that people need to make better decisions? This graphic here on the screen shows the 5 components of a drought early warning system. So those pieces of information are information about observations and monitoring, predictions and forecasting, planning and preparedness, communication and outreach, and also research and applications. And so with the drought early warning system, sometimes with the word early warning, you might think it's just the lead up to drought, having better observations and predictions and forecasting, but it really is all of these components together that make a system and make everyone better prepared for the hazard. So as I mentioned, we have a mandate to develop a national drought early warning system. However, as likely all of you know, drought is very different from one region to the next. And so NIDIS has approached our national drought early warning system by implementing regions across the country. And so this webinar primarily covers offices that are in the Missouri River Basin Drought Early Warning System, or DEWS, and the Midwest DEWS. And really what the key feature is of these regions are the network of people Our partners from, again, the federal, tribal, state, and local level, as well as academic partners that really want to make climate and drought science accessible and useful for themselves and also decision makers. And it's the network of people, the sharing of information, that really is the strength of the drought early warning system. So again, as I mentioned, for the region that this webinar covers, it's primarily falling within these two dues. And I did want to mention that we do have regional strategic action plans for both the Midwest and Missouri River Basin. For the Midwest, our plan right now actually just goes through the end of 2019. However, we are in the process of updating this strategic action plan. And for the Missouri River Basin plan, it was actually just released for the next 3 years, starting in 2021. And those can be found on the website, and I'll show you where to find those here in a little bit if you're interested in looking in more detail. One thing that I wanted to mention is our drought response within NIDIS. Of course, the early warning, a lot of it is monitoring, predictions, and forecasting, as well as planning. However, when regions are in drought, we do have a responsibility to help in those regions as much as we can. Our drought response might look a little bit different than some other agencies' responses to hazards, but what we do a lot of is communication. So making sure that people across the region have information on the current conditions, the impacts, the outlooks, and we share this information through our dues listservs as well as drought.gov and social media. The graphic here on the screen shows a snapshot of what our drought update for the North Central region looked like in December, and I will show you this on the website here in a few minutes. We also conduct post-drought assessments. For instance, we recently released an assessment, or I guess it's probably been about a year ago, on the 2017 Northern Plains drought. And I also wanted to mention with National Weather Service, this is definitely an area where we would love to partner more, making sure that the National Weather Service offices have the resources and information that you need when it comes to drought and communicating with your stakeholders in your county warning areas. So I wanted to jump into the website next, but I did want to show that I am the coordinator for the Midwest region. Britt Parker is the coordinator for the Missouri River Basin dues. And so our emails are on the screen if you're interested in getting in touch with us, and I can also put them in the chat box as well after I'm done presenting. We both have email listservs that highlights different events, webinars, drought resources, customized to the region if you're interested in joining those. Okay, so I am going to jump now into a brief overview of the overall website. Okay, so as I mentioned, drought.gov is the US drought portal. So we are the government's access to drought information, and we just recently completely redesigned our website. The new drought.gov features updated content and new interactive architecture designed to provide actionable, shareable information and easy to understand graphics that describe our current drought conditions and forecasts from the city and county level to across the globe. Just to give you a brief orientation to the website, I wanted to go across the menu here. We have a data and maps section where you can find data for current conditions, drought impacts, historical information, and outlooks. I wanted to just briefly show you that if you click on all data, you can actually filter data and maps by topic. So for instance, soil moisture, if you click on this, this will provide you all of the data and maps that are available for soil moisture that we have on drought.gov. You can also filter by location, dues region if you're looking for region-specific information as well. So next, the next tab is by sector. A lot of the feedback that we received on our old website is that people wanted to see more sector-specific information. So we have really tried to focus on this on the new website, and I'll give you a brief overview of what the sector pages look like here in just a minute. Another neat feature of the new website is the ability to browse by various scales. We now have an international page, which is brand new. You can also search at the national level, tribal level, watershed level, and even get down to the city and zip code level, which I'll show here in a second. And this is also where you can access our drought early warning system pages as well. And you can search by zip code or city over here in this select a location area. The research and learn section is basically all new content for the website. We also heard feedback that people wanted basic drought information to educate themselves on drought.gov, and that was missing on the old website. So these pages provide an overview of various topics that are important for drought. We also now highlight a lot more information on the research and the science of drought that NIDIS is funding, as well as others, and drought in action. So funding opportunities, communicating about drought. There's lots of resources available on this research and learn page. On the About page, of course, you can learn about NIDIS and who is involved within NIDIS in terms of our partners and our tribal engagement. And there's also a really great couple of pages showing what exactly is drought early warning and what are some of the activities that are going on. So if you are interested in learning more about our drought early warning system and what that actually means, these pages are really helpful. And then finally, news and events. This shows upcoming webinars that are happening across the country, our drought.gov news stories, which we try to update fairly frequently, and other information, including regional information. So the news and events is very helpful and something that would be great to share on social media as well. Okay, so I wanted to get into a couple of the key features of the website, focused first on looking at the scale. So by location, as I mentioned, you can get down to the local and county scale. So I'm going to enter a city here and look at the city page for La Crosse, Wisconsin. And a new feature now is that for local areas, either cities or counties, you can actually get notified and sign up to receive alerts when the location changes drought conditions. Right now, this is focused on the U.S. Drought Monitor. However, in the future, we hope to provide other drought indicators that people can get notified about. We have local information on precipitation and temperature in recent weeks. And one of the really neat features I like is this drought indicator dashboard of sorts. We're using the Climate Toolbox Water Watcher tool to pull this information. It not only shows the U.S. Drought Monitor for that city, but it also shows other indicators like the 60-day precipitation departure, Palmer Drought Severity Index, and stream flow as well. There's also graphics for short and long-term drought indicator blends, which were developed by NIDIS and the Climate Engine team. We have future outlooks, including the Evaporative Demand Drought Index and CPC outlooks, and the historical conditions as well. We can actually go back 2,000 years with these historical tools, including from 2000, which is the Drought Monitor, 1895, which shows SPI, and then we also have paleoclimate data from the National Centers for Environmental Information within NOAA. You can zoom in on certain locations, times throughout history, and you can get a view on whether it was wet or dry during that time. And I'll show another neat historical tool here in just a few minutes. And finally, you can get drought numbers in the county as well. So speaking of counties, I just wanted to show you really quick our county page. So you can search for any county across the US. And I am going to select Champaign, which is where I'm located. And you can get a quick by the numbers overview of drought conditions for the county and the current conditions for the drought monitor. And we also have temperature and precipitation information as well. So just as a side note, this map here, which you can see is slightly interactive right now, one of the things that's in the works is that we actually are going to have a separate interactive GIS tool that you can go to from this page and layer your own data and really explore down the road. So hopefully within a month or two that will be available. And I wanted to mention this because that could be helpful for county warning areas. You could customize some graphics for your regions. Again, we have the graphics for the indicators. Of course, it wouldn't be a live demo if there wasn't an error, but I did want to show that we have information for agriculture in the county, water supply showing stream flow and precipitation outlooks, and public health information as well. So a lot of customized information available on these county pages. Okay, the next thing I wanted to show is the historical tool. If you go to Data and Maps and click on Historical Information, one of the key pieces of feedback we received is that people really do want to see what past conditions are like in their state or county. So that's where this tool was really developed. And this, let me just zoom out just a little bit on my page so you can see the whole thing. Again, you can view just the drought monitor from 2000 or go back further in history. But what is really neat is that you can actually slide this. I'm going to move it to the 2012 drought, and you can see what drought looked like at that time period. Again, you can go to others throughout this graph. Also, look in historical conditions. Not only do you get the time series, but you also get the spatial extent, which I find really useful. Sometimes time series, of course, they're helpful, but I like to see where things are on the spatial map. And then again, our paleoclimate data as well. So since I know National Weather Service has a very large social media following, you might be interested in sharing information. And I did want to show that any of these blue dashboards for data that you see on our website, you can actually download screenshots of the panel or the map. So those are really useful if you are wanting to share on social media. So finally, before I take a break for some questions, I just wanted to show what our sector pages look like. Again, as I said, sector-based information was a big request. And so we have various sectors from agriculture, ecosystems, water utilities, energy, rec and tourism, and how those sectors are affected by drought. So let's look at the ecosystems page. So on each of these sector pages, we have featured maps and data that are available overlaid with the U.S. Drought Monitor. In this case, forested areas, prairies, deserts, for instance, for ecosystems. We also have high-level key issues that are part of that sector and information on how drought impacts that sector. And then we do have a curated list of resources organized by components of the drought early warning system for that sector. So this is a really great page if you are interested in a particular sector or if you're sharing with partners. Okay, so at this point, I am going to pause and see if there's any questions. Bethany?
Thanks, Molly. And first, a lot of kudos. This site is fantastic and such a leap forward. And I know folks are excited and will find it quite useful. And actually, one question came in specific about the screen you're looking at now, the flash drought, and wondered if there's information on flash drought on the website.
Yeah, that's a good question. So flash drought is definitely a topic that NIDIS is really actively involved in right now. Not only do we have a research and learn page on flash drought if you're just interested in learning more, but in particular, we actually just hosted a workshop, and we do have a workshop page with more information if you're interested on flash drought. So right now, we are trying to essentially take stock of what is going on in the flash drought research world at the moment. We are trying to better understand what resources, research, data is really needed to better understand and plan for flash drought. So there is a lot going on right now. If you're interested in learning more, there are those few pages that I just showed, but I'm also happy to talk more individually if people are interested about that.
Awesome, thanks, Molly. And a question about how did you all determine what sectors and where did the information come from to know about what sectors should be featured?
Yeah, so we have within NIDIS, we have various levels of what we call consultation as a federal agency, that we have an executive council and also working groups that are various members of different government levels, from federal, state, and local. And so we use those working groups and the executive council, which is also made up of many of these different sectors, to gather information on what is most important. And so that is really where we gathered this information. But in terms of where the actual content came from, there were a lot of resources that were scoured for the information, and that really did populate these pages. And then we did review them with sector-based experts just to make sure that everything was accurate. So that is where the information came from.
Awesome, thank you for that background. And I guess now that wraps the questions for now. Again, folks, if you've got questions as they pop up, don't hesitate to throw them in the questions pane, and we'll continue to have some time throughout the rest of the webinar. So back to you, Molly.
Okay, great. So I am going to spend about 10 minutes now showing you the DEWS pages for the Midwest and the Missouri River Basin. I am going to focus on the Midwest to show you some of the features, but just know that pretty much the content is very similar to what you'll find on the Missouri River Basin page, but of course just customized to that region. So again, you can get to the Midwest Drought Early Warning System page or MRB by going to the location and clicking on the region you're interested in. And what we found from looking at Google Analytics of the old website is that people really are not interested necessarily in getting a regional snapshot of their drought indicators. They are much more interested in the local scale and state scale, and that is why we focused on the data and maps so much at that scale. Really what people were interested in at the regional level is getting a sense of what is going on in our drought early warning systems and with partners. And so that really is the focus of our drought early warning system pages. So in this top section, it just gives you a brief overview of drought in the region. And then this is also where you can access our strategic plans. As I mentioned before, we have those for each of the regions. And in the presentation, I also mentioned that we provide drought status updates occasionally, and this is where you can find those. So if you click on viewing the latest drought status update, I just wanted to briefly show this. So this was released in mid-December. These are not done on a regular basis. They really are as needed. And so the previous one I think was done in September, but then we issued this one in December to kind of lay the land for where conditions were still an issue, where drought conditions were still persisting, and the fact that looking at outlooks and data that we felt that in certain areas drought conditions are likely to persist throughout the winter season. So we wanted to highlight this information through this drought status update, which shows the U.S. Drought Monitor conditions. And then we go into some bullet point facts about current conditions, going into some maps that are available, outlooks and potential impacts, and other information on where you can get more data. So these are available and sent out through our listserv. So if we do issue one, they go out through the listserv and social media. Let me go back to the main page. We also highlight events. So webinars are typically the main thing that we're highlighting for events right now. But of course, any meetings, whether that's virtual or in person in the future, would be listed here in the event section. One of the really neat features that I'm excited about is this regional activities table. So each of the DEWS pages has this table which highlights activities that are going on in the region related to drought. So these are not necessarily ones that NIDIS is spearheading. It could be, but it also represents our partner activities. So we really wanted to showcase our partners on the new website and show how they are active in drought, whether that's in planning, obs and monitoring, communications, any information that or activity that they are doing related to drought. You can search by location, key partners. So I did want to show on this one, National Weather Service. Oh, you have to press submit, sorry. So this highlights 3 activities that are currently in the Midwest table for National Weather Service drought activities, including a couple up in Minnesota, and then also the local drought information statements that are done by all the offices at various levels of drought. And you can also search by component as well. Sorry, it jumped there. So if you're interested in just looking at things that are going on related to planning and preparedness, you can pull up various activities that you can dive into. So I did want to show here, clicking on this activity. If you click on those, it pulls up a page that just gives you a little bit information about the activity and who's involved. And then if there is a website that you can go to learn more, we do have here, in this case, it's viewing decision calendars from this project for specialty crops. So really the goal of this is that our partners can learn from one another. They can see what's going on across the region. And hopefully that will be helpful at not reinventing the wheel, maybe taking some of the ideas from other partners and making them active in your area. Okay, the next section is a curated list of resources for the region. So we again have these organized by the components of the drought early warning systems. First, with observations and monitoring, each DEWS coordinator went through and basically hand selected resources for the region. So these are the top 6 resources that I selected for the Midwest to look at observations and monitoring. But you can always go to more data and maps if you're interested in looking at different resources that are available. For planning and preparedness, we are sharing several resources that are available. In this case, a lot of them are PDFs or other resources that are available. We also link on each page to various websites that you might be able to get more information for planning. Again, predictions and forecasting. I selected 6 top resources here for to look at regional outlooks. Communications and outreach. This is a section that I hope to develop more here in the near future. But one thing I did want to mention is that with communications and outreach, there are monthly webinar series that are available for this region, which I'm sure you're most likely aware of. Doug Cluck at NOAA and Dennis Toddy and other regional partners like the High Plains Regional Climate Center, the Midwest Regional Climate Center, NIDIS, National Weather Service, pull these together, the webinars that happen. The other thing that's unique to the Midwest DEWS is that we do actually have a social media listserv. So again, I know that National Weather Service has a big presence on social media. And so what we do with this listserv is that we share drought-related posts with each other about the Midwest. So if NIDIS posts something about drought in the Midwest on Twitter, for instance, I would send an email out to this listserv to say, hey, this is available if you're interested in retweeting. So this came out of a communications workshop we had about 2 years ago where partners were interested in sharing information if they just knew it was available. So that was the primary driver for that. So if you're interested in joining that, I would love to have more National Weather Service members on that listserv. Please send me an email. And finally, research and applications. This highlights NIDIS-supported research that are going on right now in each region. There's a lot of interesting research projects in terms of looking at the characteristics of drought, improving early warning using EDI, the Evaporative Drought Demand Index. And you can look at each of these pages if you're interested in finding more information on who's doing the research, what exactly the research is about, what to expect from the research, and in the future when there are publications or 2-pagers available, for instance, they will be populated here in this section. So again, as I mentioned, this was focused on the Midwest DEWS page, but the Missouri River Basin has a very similar format, highlighting the activities for that region and resources specific to the MRB. Okay, so that is my overview of the DEWS pages, and I'm happy to take any questions that people have about this part of the website or overall the presentation or NIDIS.
Thanks, Molly. There's a question about how someone could submit an activity to the regional partner activity table.
Yes, so you can actually send them to the regional coordinator. Right now I'm on the Missouri River Basin page, so that would be Britt Parker, and her website, or I'm sorry, her email address is right here on the website. For the Midwest table, that would be me. And we would love to have more activities, especially from the National Weather Service. If you are involved in any sort of drought planning or activities with others in your county warning areas, we'd really love to display those in the table. So please reach out to either one of us and we can get those added.
Great, Molly, thanks. There's another question. There are some areas across the U.S. that don't look like they're covered by a dues. Is there a plan to have the entire country covered?
Yes, there is. As I mentioned, we are mandated to have a national drought early warning system, and we currently are strategizing how we do that. Right now, our boundaries are what we call fuzzy, whereas, you know, for instance, in the Midwest, let me just pull up the map here really quick. You can see that our boundaries essentially on the northern part are the Mississippi River Basin and the Ohio River Basin. So essentially this Great Lakes area is not quote unquote covered by the Midwest dues. However, with the exception of Michigan, I cover all of these states that are currently touched by the Midwest dues. So in the future though, we do plan to cover the entire country. We also do support some work outside of our current dues. Right now we are fairly active in Alaska and Hawaii, even though there isn't an active dues at this time. But in the near future, we will be implementing more dues, including, for instance, a Great Lakes region, in order to cover the entire country. So yes, that is in the works, and we hope within the next couple of years we can cover the whole country.
That's great and very exciting.
Yes.
So right now, why don't I have you and Natalie jump back on camera, and we'll wrap up with a couple more questions that have come in. Let's see.
Okay.
Natalie, oh, I guess I can join and smile too. So Natalie, I think that you've got some follow-up that you can provide from our earlier questions.
Yeah. So there was a question about seeing if there was a way to get the observation times on the multi-station search within XMASIS. So let me just share my screen real quick here, and I can show everybody what I'm talking about, just in case folks aren't familiar with it. All right, so you should be seeing my browser. Yes, there we go, audience view. And so I've got XMASIS pulled up real quick here. And so if you are in a pinch and you need observation times, you can get it through XMASIS, but it's individual, and it is maybe not intuitive because it's not in the station information part, which you see here down at the bottom. It is actually in this daily data for a month option. And so if you select that, choose your month, and then select your station, so I could pick Broken Bow, Nebraska, it's going to show up down there at the bottom. And so I just went through and pulled some of these for different months at Lamar in Colorado. And so this is from last month, and we can see their obs time is at 7 a.m. I pulled 1990, January, it's at 8 a.m. And then 1975, XMASIS tells us that we don't have reliable ops times prior to 1982. So I know that those are in Homer. I'm not sure if that's just a statement that comes up if you pick anything prior to that in XMASIS. And of course, this all matches the NCEI's site right there. So if you're in a pinch and you need something very quickly and you're working in XMASIS, you can do that through, like I said, the daily data for a month option, and it'll show up down there at the bottom. Now, I was poking around the multi-station tool, and I was pulling up, I just picked a day, a couple days ago or from yesterday, looking at the low temperatures up in North Dakota. And so that's going to be the daily data feature up here with multi-station. And so you can see in the options, there is this additional option selection that you can choose, but like was brought up before, it does not have an observation time there. And that would be really helpful because, yes, it would be good to know when those temperatures were recorded. So that's something that I will, I'll talk to Keith Eggleston at the Northeast and see if that's something that is able to be added in. And then I'll see what we can get going on that. So good question. And yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Talk about rapid service. Thanks, Natalie. That's great. Again, lots of thanks and kudos have come through for you guys. Not a lot of questions here at the end. So we can wrap a couple minutes early, but let me pass it on to each one of you for any final thoughts or comments.
Sure. I wanted just to mention that I did in the chat box put my email as well as Britt Parker's. If you're interested in reaching out, we would love to get in contact with you individually. And if you're interested in being added to the listserv or adding an activity to those regional tables, we would love to hear from you. So don't hesitate to reach out. And even if you have any other questions or anything, or want to see something different on drought.gov that's not there, please let us know.
Yeah, and same here. If you have any questions anytime, feel free to reach out to me directly. I put my email and phone number in the chat. And of course, we do have our contact us page on our website as well. So looking forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you, ladies. It's a pleasure to get to work with such awesome people in the Central Region, and I have a hunch a lot of the folks on the line feel the same way, or we'll get to know you and feel the same way. So thanks to both of you for being here today. Thanks to the audience for the great interaction. You know, all this stuff is really exciting and needed, and I hope everyone's enjoyed learning a little bit more about how to navigate these resources. So as a reminder, we're going to wrap, and there'll be a couple of questions that pop up on your screen. Please take a couple of moments to answer those. We really value that feedback. So that wraps up today's website walkabout with HPRCC and NIDIS. Thanks again for the participation, and have a great day. Take care.